I am, this is an extreme privilege. We're super excited to have Stuart Woolf with us today. He's going to speak next to us. He is the president and CEO of Woolf Farming and Processing. Woolf Farming and Processing is a family-owned operation that focuses on production and processing of agriculture commodities. Mr. Woolf has helped establish Harris Wolf California almonds and Los Gatos tomato products. He earned a bachelor's degree from UC Berkeley and an MBA from Boston College. And today we're honored to have him present his perspective on the California agriculture industry. Please join me in welcoming Stuart Woolf.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I have to tell you, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyway, once again, I'm surrounded by people that are a lot smarter than me. This happens to me virtually every morning. So anyway, I'm just going to walk through a little bit about our company, our farming operation, kind of when it was started, what we're kind of up to, and race through just some of the opportunities that we see on the farm. Wolf Farming Company, we actually started in 1974.
Stuart, you're not full screen if you want to be. I mean, you're.
Oh, how do I do that?
There's a little button there that says slideshow. You see it?
Hang on a second. I'm challenged on these things.
Yeah, I mean, this is okay. This is still works, so it's not like this, you know. But if you want,
if you look at the bottom right, Wolf, it's the first icon. It's like a little screen, bottom right.
Like this?
Yep.
Did that work? Okay.
Here we go.
There we go. Okay.
Anyway, so now I don't know. I apologize, but this is, let me go back here. So here we started in 74. This is my father who recently passed away, but I would just say one thing that's kind of unique about this. I'm standing here with one of my sons, my dad. When my dad started in 74, if you just look at a crop like tomatoes, he was budgeting 22 ton per acre furrow irrigating, and he was using more water, producing less tons. And in his day, he was considered to be a pretty progressive grower and what have you. My generation, you know, today we're averaging about 60 tons under drip irrigation, making fewer passes, producing, you know, more with less. My 60-ton average on the field with my team is composed of parts of our fields that are doing 80 tons plus. And so I look at my son Morgan here, and I believe in his generation,
Stuart, you froze. Perhaps we could, if you can still hear me, you can turn off your video. That'll help probably. I'll give him a couple minutes to get reconnected.
We'll keep an eye out for him joining back in.
We do his slides off a different computer so it doesn't eat his bandwidth, and then he can just go audio.
Yeah, Brett has his slides.
Yeah, I have his slides ready to go. Let's see, I will stop his screen sharing.
Yeah, great idea.
Okay.
I guess, Chandra, he's illustrating the problem you talk about of having limited bandwidth out on the farms where you're putting lots of sensors.
So while it would be great if we could go through his slides, we really need Stuart to speak to them, you know. So.
He'll be back in a minute. It's happens up to me all the time.
Sure.
I'm in Fresno. It's you gotta restart the connection.
Yeah, of course.
Olivia, if you can reach him, he could also just call in and then do it over the phone. The number should be right on the same link.
Yeah, I could text him the audio bridge. He could join by cell phone. Let me try that. Brett, could you put the phone number and code on the chat room, or where do I find it?
I'll get it for you, Olivier. Just a sec.
Thanks.
I take it back, Brett. Maybe you need to do it because you have all that. Sorry, everybody, for the technical difficulty.
I think there's a call-in option right on the regular invite that went out.
Yeah, I'm looking now. I'll find it.
It's just below the Zoom thing for.
Bob, if you have it, you can send it. You can just text it over to Olivier.
Or you can just put in the chat room. I
Yeah,
text him to Stuart right now.
in the chat. Yeah.
I don't have it handy right here. I just know that
Or
they
Brett.
always appear right below it because I've been living on Zoom lately.
Actually, you can probably find it here. I got it. Actually, it's in the Zoom info.
I'm
I
back.
think Stuart's back.
Oh, you're back?
My apologies. I have a new computer. I don't know what's going on, but nevertheless.
No
It's
worries.
just-
We're actually sharing your slides. So Brett will run your slides. Just tell us when you want to change them and you can just speak to them.
Okay, well, let's change them. Change.
Brett, are you on? There we go.
Yep.
Okay, so we have, just briefly, we have about 25,000 acres around the Huron area, all of which my family, we own. This is the same ground that these generations continue to improve yield and lower costs and what have you. We also were involved in tomato and almond processing. Los Gatos will run about 1 million tons there. Harris Wolf, we're currently handling about 80 million pounds of almonds. And we're investing in, kind of the best available technology on the farm and these operations to drive costs and efficiency. Next. One thing about our company and our management team, we think it's really strategic to be kind of early adopters on technology. And so we're very oriented to figuring out, this is a great time to be a farmer with all these startups and with the work that's being done, like the work you guys are doing. And so, we still operate in this very optimistic, lots of opportunity kind of mindset. But again, we think it's strategic to be on the front end of the adoption curve. Next. And again, we've just basically switched from going from row crop operations, growing a lot of lower value commodity crops like grains, melons, cotton, and what have you, where we did a lot of groundwork, a lot of land leveling, to basically the adoption of all of our property now is under either berry drip irrigation, micro sprinklers, what have you. And then we shifted our crop profiles to crops where we enjoyed, better returns per acre foot and where California had strategic advantage. Lastly, I would just say the adoption of drip by itself, we dramatically reduced the number of passes in our fields. We drove productivity. So early on, when we first started today's session and we were setting goals or herd goals of like saving 50% in energy and water and what have you, I think it's key from my mindset, like, you have the right metrics. We likely won't be able to make those savings per acre, but my goal is to make the savings per pound or per ton, meaning we're going to be driving yields with fewer inputs. Next. So far from my dad starting in 74, we're producing 3 times the number of tons per acre on the same land. We vertically integrated, so we drove, prior to us building our own facility, we were trucking tomatoes up to Tracy and Stockton and what have you. And now it's a much shorter haul, and we're saving over 1 million gallons of diesel per year. You know, I think these are just things that a lot of people kind of forget, like, wow, there have been these achievements. And we've reduced our diesel burn out in our fields using, again, the buried drip. And just one thing, when we built our tomato facility in 1990, there were no emission standards for our boilers. Today, we have to operate at about 5% of what those boilers, what we were allowed to emit back in 1990. It's a pretty impressive track record, I believe. Next. So our challenges right now with drip, by concentrating the water and having to rely more on our wells, we're concentrating the salts, where when my father was farming, he was distributing the salts evenly through his fields. Now we just put them right in the seed row. Distribution uniformity with all these drip systems. It's amazing how many people, how many farmers put in a drip system and assume that they have uniform distribution uniformity throughout that field over the life of the system. And we all know that that changes, and you have to constantly monitor them and what have you. You know, I'm one that thinks there's still opportunities to get more out of our crops, whether it's CRISPR or actually crossbreeding stuff and using genetically modified organisms, what have you. You know, we still think there are opportunities there. Labor costs are going up, our availability stuff, and, you know, water, materials, regulations. Opportunities, again, keep in mind, I'm looking at this from a vertically integrated farming and food processing perspective. Imagery in our processing plants, I think there's great opportunities there. And a lot of the data that we're able to look down on our fields, FW stands for fixed swings, just getting imagery of our fields, figuring out where the stress is and what have you. And one area that I think there's great opportunity that we haven't quite nailed down is with yield monitors. Like in our tomato fields, you know, as I mentioned, we're averaging 60 ton to the acre, yet we know in those fields they can vary from 80 to 40 tons in any given field. I want to have yield maps, and this is tough to do in the tomato business, that would overlay with our maps that are showing stress in the fields. All of our soils are very, very uniform out there. So anyway, I think there's opportunities there. More analytics, clearly. I've talked to Olivier in the past about, we have an irrigation business that puts in irrigation systems and drills wells. I think one of the opportunities is for companies that basically sell plastic pipe to actually be selling water use efficiency to their customers and provide, you know, put the sensors in, provide a framework where they're delivering a service that ensures that system is really functionally efficiently and they have good distribution uniformity. Again, we're going to continue to invest in mechanization, and in regards to the materials we're using, we're using more biologicals instead of just synthetic fertilizers and what have you. Next. One thing that I just think is kind of interesting, you know, we are inundated with people with great ideas that not all of them have ever been on a farm or you know, where there are these great ideas, but that don't have kind of the practical experience of how to actually get them used on the farm. And so we're swamped with all these choices. It's difficult for our team to figure out, you know, who do we align with and who do we work with? And, you know, most farmers, okay, we're swamped. We tend to have a lot of assets, not necessarily a lot of cash. I think that generally makes farmers a little skeptical about where they're going to invest their next dollar when it comes to new technology. A lot of snake oil salesmen out there, and I think most guys do feel a little bit like guinea pigs. And I think a lot of the people that bring technology to us, they're clearly, a lot of them are focused on their product and how they go to market and how they raise their next round. Typically, we run into a lot of people that seem kind of stressed, overworked, strapped for funds, and are usually overly optimistic about the impact their technology can have. And it's just kind of a funny dance that I point out. If you're a farmer with all these folks coming to you with great ideas and you're known to be an early adopter or interested, it's still a tough thing to figure out who to go with. Next. On our team, so how we do this, I actually get our team together, all of my farm managers. I ask them where they think, what technologies, what areas could we really move the needle most on the farm. In an area that's water deficient, you would think all of them would turn to water. Most of them do not. They think we can move the needle with just better analytics. And when I say not with water, just like when I ask them, do you think we can move the needle from, if we're already in the low 90s or mid 90s in water use efficiency on the ranch, do you think we can get, higher than that? These guys tend to want to think about, we just need better information systems, yield monitors, that kind of thing. But we allow them to kind of dictate where are the areas and the technologies that interest you the most. We allow them to go out and talk to the people approaching us and make recommendations. And then we reward them when they make the right choices. We share some of the savings with them. And I always tell them, if you guys perpetually are picking the wrong vendors and the wrong technology, then we'll have to make other decisions. But so far, they're pretty good about, dialing that in. But I think it's part of our culture. It's part of our DNA to be early adopters. Next. This, just as it relates to like nut processing, we just spent about $6.5 million on the latest and greatest in electronics. And what's really startling to me is how good this equipment is and how we're able to run right now about 40,000 pounds an hour. And once it goes through a bank of these high-end electronics and goes through the sizer, the product is basically market ready. And I point to this a little bit because one thing that occurs to me as we go out and develop key relationships with buyers, I think the buyers are getting more and more focused on the type of technology and the equipment we're using. And if you have a choice to buy from 100 different processors of almonds in the state, why not align with those that have the best equipment to really deliver the highest quality and what have you? And I look at it, this is an instance where technology is driving consolidation. To put in a $6.5 million line, you've got to have the volume to actually, make the economics work. And then once you have it, we look at it that we're probably one of maybe 5 to 10 processors that can actually do this. So we think this will make us more attractive to larger customers, but ultimately it is leading to some level of consolidation. Next. Here, the technology just in sorting and what have you is getting so much better. An issue for us in the almond trade clearly are things like aflatoxin and salmonella and what have you. And if we can do a better job figuring out how to sort this stuff out or detect it, it makes a huge, huge difference. And so we're watching improvements here and very excited about it. Next. In California, just being a farmer here, not to go into this great depth, but we really have kind of lost a lot of our surface water. Sigma's going to reduce our acreage down further. We do have issues with trade and what have you. Our labor sources are fewer and more expensive. Even things like truckers, trying to find truckers during harvest season is becoming more and more difficult. And clearly energy is one of our ever, growing issues and problems and cost categories and regulatory issues. Next. So, a lot of these opportunities and things that we see, we still need to have the policies in the state that allow us actually to end up with like our optimal outcomes. We were talking about groundwater recharge. Groundwater recharge right now is not considered a beneficial use in the state. And what that means is if you're a federal water contractor, you have to demonstrate beneficial use really to keep your contract and be eligible to receive water. Surprisingly, in a state that really does need to do more groundwater banking, we haven't changed the definition of that. And there's some uncertainty as to whether or not, it's an accepted use of surface water in regions of the state that are either federal or state districts. As I mentioned earlier, we don't have a statewide plan for flood flows when they arrive. And we do need additional infrastructure if we hope to move this resource around throughout the valley. And water banking and water marketing all sounds great, but you still have to deliver it. We need funding on ag research and at our public universities. Solar, we think long-term solar is going to be part of our crop mix. And we hope to generate some energy, use it on site, and use the water that's associated with that land elsewhere on the lands that we are farming. As it stands right now, it's not considered an ag use, and it does put into jeopardy our water rights. It sounds crazy, but that's kind of where we are. Next. We do a lot of long-term planning here. We're hoping to pass this on to the next generation. Kind of our crystal ball, we think with technology and with regulation, all these challenges, there's going to be fewer farmers. The bigger are going to get bigger. We're going to have fewer acres in the valley. We think it will, with Sigma, we'll see 500,000 to 1 million acres come out. We think this will push more permanent crops. As crazy as that sounds, and the hardening of water demand, when you look at your return per acre foot, we're better off fallowing ground and using those water supplies to grow maybe fewer acres, but make them, more profitable crops like almonds, pistachios, wine grapes, citrus. Certainly fewer dairies. We'll have higher farm revenue, but we think our margins will continue to be squeezed. I really think the big opportunity is for us on the farm, we continue to focus on improving yield while marginally reducing our inputs. And that's what will drive, we believe, the right metric that we believe is the right metric. It's the water per ton or the water per pound or the energy per ton or pound. We're also, for the next generation, we're doing this now. I'll be in Portugal in about a month. We're looking at opportunities outside of California. We see a lot of the crops shifting, permanent crops in particular, from the south to the north. We're not getting the chilling hours that we used to in the south. And in our own case, we're really focusing on more renewable energy as part of our mix. Just yesterday, I got a 1,600 acre solar installation approved for our property. And we're going to be leasing that out for about 30 years and utilizing the water on that on our other crops, and hopefully be able to tag in for our own use on our farm. Next. The crazy ideas I think about now, really, my dad used to focus on all the lands that he was irrigating. I'm probably spending a little more time focusing on the lands that will be fallowing. We're presently fallowing about 7,000 acres a year. I mentioned the solar. We're also looking at some water banking on our property. We'd like to be in a position that we could store water for other growers and provide it to them in dry years. We're looking at, this is my secret plan, I'll share with this group, I'm looking at agave to plant on ground that will be fallowing. And I, in particular, like well-aged tequila. And I don't know why we don't have it here. So anyway, we're actually futzing around with that. We're going to continue to mechanize. I would hope one day with opportunities with solar, I would love to have a microgrid where all of our vehicles on the ranch, are electric. I think in our future, we'll likely, I hope, see more electric farm equipment. The other thing I think about is we generate a lot of biomass, but we have policies in the state that they really don't want to see burning in the valley. But I think, if we could burn it cleanly using pyrolysis and figure out a way to actually utilize some of that on the ranch. I would love to be preheating water going into my boilers at the tomato plant using the trees that I'm taking out and rotating and what have you. And again, I mentioned the need for yield maps and greater water use efficiency and how that will help drive yields. One more. Just how we look at it, we don't think we're going to see the run up in farm productivity that my father saw, like from his generation to mine. I think we're going to continue to push the curve, up top, but I don't think it's going to be as great. Most of the this is what I always tell our team, most of these guys that are bringing these great innovative things to us probably won't make it. We've got to make sure that we choose the ones that we think will not only have good technology, but will make it. We're going to get by. We're going to be using less water, fewer materials, less labor, but it's going to be really incremental. I would point out, this is one thing I tell our guys, we save an inch of water on the ranch. It's worth about 250 grand to us. And so can't you save an inch? And so anyway, these incremental changes are still meaningful. I think innovation, as I said, will drive consolidation. We're getting much more transparent with our key customers and providing, having the information and systems in place, what have you, to provide that, I think is meaningful to them. But the more information we generate, I also recognize ultimately government may very well use this to further regulate us. Food quality, safety, we believe will improve. I continue to think that we're going to have to embrace technology to improve yields and varieties. I would just make note, like in our tomato business, if we can move sugar solids in tomatoes from averaging 5.2 to 5.3, that 1/10 is worth about 6 pounds of paste on a raw ton of tomatoes. And it doesn't sound like a lot unless you run 1 million tons. So that would generate 6 million. That's worth about another $2.5 million to us on the revenue side. And so I look forward to seeing better varieties that are producing higher yields, producing more finished products. And I think that's how we drive the savings in energy and water. Anyway, that concludes my comments, and I appreciate the time being here. And again, apologize for my technical difficulties.
Thank you so much, Stuart. That was fantastic.